right now being creative to get in front of people, especially whenever you can, the market has shifted in favor of us. You just have to get them on the phone at this point in time. So do it by whatever means necessary. Welcome, everybody. Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost here with another episode of the Big Picture Blueprint, where you just have the pleasure of listening to Dan and myself have a conversation. But before we get into our topic of the day, Dan, how are things going out in California?
Good, man. It's been a fun summer. It's thinning the busyness out here since we're past tourist season and kids are going back to school. And business is interesting right now. It's different. We're in a different market than we've been in for a long time, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, about the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm seeing it in my own business too, of like a lot of the time that I'm spending, at least on the broker side of things, is with buyers, because buyers are starting to have a lot more power. And that means that for those of us that are very heavily focused on direct to seller acquisitions of land or other real estate products, it's an opportunity for us. I mean, today, for instance, I just typed in, looking at the news, and we're recording this episode August 14th of 2025. So I imagine it'll be a few weeks before this comes out. But Newsweek today published at 6:20 this morning, U.S. housing market shifts in favor of buyers. More houses are selling for less than their original asking prices. A lot of real estate agents won't even take listings right now because they're so afraid of what the expectations are. So it creates and poses a really unique opportunity for us, because now's the time, people, for all the people that have been sitting on the sidelines for years or decades. Here's your opportunity to buy. And we'll try and break down in today's episode how this applies in specifically in the land business, and then some additional investment opportunities on the single, small, multifamily home side of things too.
Well, yeah, this is exciting because, I mean, since I started in real estate, it was late 2017 when I started really reading about it, listening to podcasts, and the beginning of 2018 when I bought my first property. It's been nothing but a seller's market. It was much more balanced early on, 18, 19, before the pandemic, but it was still a little bit more of a seller's market, at least where I was doing business. And so this is the first time, people are so afraid of this, but at the same time complain about high prices and endless competition. Well, finally, prices are coming down in a lot of places, and there's less competition. And so I see this as a good thing for us in land too. And that's what I really want to hit on today, is that this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. And let's spend a little bit of time explaining why it's not a bad thing. Because in the land business, depending on the product that you're talking about, and we spend a lot of time there's markets that have substantially slowed down throughout the country, but other markets that have maybe picked back up or remain neutral. And if you're able to open up the buyer pool and by offering, seller financing and all that kind of stuff, you're able to keep deals flowing. But if you look at the data, we are still millions of units short on housing for the entire country. And so in order for that shift to occur, like, new construction is still going to have to go on. And regardless of builder sentiment being at a, pretty much all-time low, for the past decade, and builders offering more incentives, there's still an opportunity for you to create a business, because we're working with tons of builders throughout the country that are still building and are still very aggressive with their acquisition pipeline. But I think one of the mindset shifts that you're going to need to have is, just because it's a buying opportunity, it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing for the market as a whole. It just means that you have to be extraordinarily diligent on your pricing, on your acquisition, because otherwise you're going to be buying way too high, which we'll get into some of the tactical stuff around managing seller expectations, because even though it is a buyer's market now, sellers don't necessarily feel that or believe that.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother conversation under the topic of negotiations. But tactically speaking, one of the biggest differences is we can buy deals on market sometimes now. The 640 acres that I bought last month in Colorado, I got that at, what was it, 600 an acre? That would have not been feasible 2 years ago if they had listed that, especially 3 or 4 years ago. And next time the market's hot, that would not be feasible. There's another property. I lost this one. Someone else got it, but they didn't pay more. They just had slightly better terms. It was just shy of 1,000 acres. Mason knows this property. great area, just east of Colorado Springs. If it was 2021, that property would have never sat on market, would have sold quickly at a much higher price. And again, I lost that one, but somebody else got a killer deal. And so what I think about right now is if it was 2020, everything would sell quickly. You could buy garbage, it would sell quickly. Flippers know this in the home flippers as well. Now I see it as the time to really narrow down on prime, nice properties. Number one, they'll still sell. And number two, you can get them at more of a discount than you would have been able to 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And that's, to me, is exciting.
Yeah. And I think your example of purchasing a property on market is potentially foreign to a lot of people, because what you and I talk about a lot, we've done at least 2 or 3 solo episodes on this topic, is the advantage that we create by being really good at the direct to seller, whether it's the direct mail or texting or calling or emailing or whatever it might be. That's one of the competitive advantages that we're able to create, is we're going out and getting these leads off market. Which, the thing is, I think looking at what's on market, you still have to take that approach a little bit of, you offer what you can pay for it. But so many retail buyers, they're not going to even offer on this land. Mm-hmm. So you see this land that's been sitting on the market for 3 months or 6 months or 18 months, and you feel like, well, it's not selling because there's something wrong with it. It's, once again, eliminate the assumptions that you're making about the property, assuming you know where it is and it's in a good market and maybe there's an improvement aspect of it, but go make the offer. It's so much easier, honestly, than having to actually get in contact. I mean, our response rates are so freaking low whenever it comes to mail and cold calling, of just in general, as versus ideally realtors picking up, which it's a whole other issue of, there's properties on market that have been on market for a long time that we try to get in contact with these realtors and there's no one there. It's these flat fee listing brokers that, I mean, there's no one on the other end of the line. And so, I mean, that's creating another opportunity, because it's this assumption of realtors being this inefficient, very expensive market that don't provide a tremendous amount of value, that sellers are trying to, sell it themselves. Which just creates more opportunity for the legitimate buyer. So if you have the capital to deploy and you understand the market that you're attempting to operate in, I mean, one of the easiest things we do, and here's exactly how we do it, is we hop on the MLS or hop on Zillow if we don't have access to the MLS. We filter by days on market and we call every single agent, starting at the back of the list and moving forward on the list. And then we also send mailers to those specific landowners or homeowners, because just getting an offer, and I get it. I mean, Dan and I are selling a property in Texas today at pretty significant loss, and it's just it's just time to get it off the books.
Yeah.
And most people that own land aren't land flippers like us. So if they hear an offer, at least create some negotiation and take action, because you're going to be really surprised what people are accepting right now.
Yeah, that's such a good example, because there's a lot of people out there that are 10x us or 100x us, and they're 60 years old, and their version of the piece of crap they bought in Texas, they just want to get out their books, could be, a 100-acre tract that Mason or I or someone like us could subdivide and make money on, right? And so that's a perfect analogy. And yeah, there's properties just sitting on the market that are good deals now, and that really wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago. So it's exciting. And to be clear, anyone who doesn't have the context of what we're talking about, the on-market deals I'm talking about are subdivide deals.
Yeah, and there's plenty of value add that can go on right now, and I think Dan, you can probably speak to it more, just because I'm not as heavily involved in the rental property market, but now's a great time for purchasing new construction homes that could serve as rental properties. And yeah, it's not going to cash flow if you're trying to do some really ridiculous low down payment creative financing. But if you're flush with cash, you have the opportunity to, take some of the depreciation, long-term appreciation. There's a tremendous amount of builder incentives going on right now that creates a really, really great buying opportunity for the long term. Of, you're not going to be disappointed if in 20 years you've had a renter paying down your mortgage and then eventually you refinance if rates ever come down much further than they do. rates, people, I don't think are going to ever go down to 2 or 3%. Like you missed out. Um, and but with that being said, like depending on your investment thesis, it's okay to put a $200,000 down payment down on a $400,000 home. Because then you're going to cash flow on it and your money's sitting in a really safe area. And if you're flush with cash right now, I would be in a buying spree on single family rental properties in really good markets where it's cheaper for most people to rent right now than it is to buy. I mean, for me included, of like, I moved out of my home, kept it as a rental, it's cash flowing. We'll get a cost seg study done this year. It'll be nice. And we moved into a rental because we're paying $2,000 less per month to rent this house than it would cost us to own it. So, whenever you're looking at these market dynamics, like recognize that one, on a personal side, every investment or every decision you make doesn't need to be an investment. Live where you want, how you want, do whatever you want, as long as you're making, money and can support yourself. But two, like the buying opportunity extends to just about every asset class right now, beyond just, big on market subdivides.
Yeah. So getting away from land just for a moment. I agree. I was talking to my brother yesterday. He's out looking right now, and I'm like, man, do not settle. You have the best buying opportunity that there's been in a long time, and especially, it's August. If he can wait until between Halloween and New Year's, man, that is the window. I think it's going to be a cold winter, figuratively speaking. And I agree with what you said about new construction. If I didn't have so much cash stuck in these Florida lots, I would be out making offers aggressively on two things. Nice new rental, nice new builds, like Mason said, because builders just want to move their inventory and keep things going. And prime properties, small multifamily in Colorado Springs or Pueblo West, where I know it like the back of my hand. So yeah, if you have cash and have been waiting to buy, go. This is absolutely the time. And I just going back to what I said earlier, I would just focus on the quality of the asset. Location, right, is at the top of the list, and then maybe you can't afford the best locations, but you can get new construction in a B area or something like that. Just avoid crappy assets is really the biggest lesson I've learned, especially now that we're not in a crazy seller's market.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think, with everything, the pendulum is going to swing and keep kind of swinging in favor of the buyers for a little while longer. But there's going to be a natural course of correction. And hopefully, barring unforeseen like black swan events and global pandemics and different things like that, I think that we're probably shifting into like a much more neutral market, going into 2026 and for the next handful of years or so, which will kind of stabilize things both on the investment front, on the new development front, and just related to the competition that is in this space, which I think we can spend a little bit of time talking about the thinning of the competition that we've seen, at least in the land flipping space. There's a lot of people, gurus and YouTubers that have fallen off, that are no longer able to do it because they haven't sold enough coaching products and, haven't been able to actually make any money. But 2023 into 2024 and the beginning of 2025, like it was much more difficult in the land flipping space than I think in years past, where everyone was making a tremendous amount of money. It's caused a lot of disruption, I think, for those of us that have continued on and continued to try to make deals, because seller expectations beyond reading the news, getting these blind offers for 4 times as much as their property is worth, forces us to get really, really good at sales and be really comfortable offering what numbers make sense. But I do think that with fewer people in this space, in this mom and pop level investor space, that Dan and I kind of consider ourselves in, we're not institutional. So what I'm saying is we're not multi 8-9 figure operators that are so well capitalized we can, buy anything we want. I think makes it easier, because all of the stuff that we've been preaching for the past 3 years, or 2 years on the show, or however long we've been doing this, of focusing on legitimacy, focusing on proof of funds and title insurance and all the basic stuff of doing this business, is what's going to actually get deals to close, because all of these sellers are fed up with getting these offer letters every single day. Like I have this postcard because it's the funniest postcard to me ever of like tired of lowball offers on your land, give us a call. And those bad land flippers out there has created a really good opportunity for the legitimate business owner.
Yeah, I think so too. Just I've said this repeatedly, but the pickup we've seen in response to our direct seller marketing, and not just that, but real leads where it's the real person and they want to sell. We have so many fewer people calling and giving outrageous numbers. Now, granted, we're not marketing to Florida as much, so that could be part of it, but even in the Carolinas, it's the same thing. We are getting some really prime pieces of property that people are calling us back on wanting to sell. It's crazy. Like these are properties that land brokers would be dying to get. So that's exciting. And I think just anecdotally, you and I, Mason, know plenty of people personally that have gotten jobs and got it out of the land space. I've seen it with realtors too. There's a few realtors we both know who are doing very, very well, taking a lot of market share the last couple of years as a lot of their competitors have fallen off. So I just see this. I see several factors coming together right now, creating a massive opportunity. One just being the market and kind of the culling of the herd. And then at the same time, you have all these boomers that are passing their stuff on, they're passing away and people are inheriting it, or they're just looking for a place to retire and get rid of some of their assets. And so I really see this as a time to triple down. And if you're the hobbyist, land investor, someone's going to eat your lunch. I mean, if you're trying to just set up a business paying third-party vendors, you're not going to succeed. And that's what I think. So this is the time to be on it. We're going to talk more specifics on that. But what were you going to say, Mason?
No, I think you're right on. And the people that have failed, it's this funny thing of like you need to either adapt or you need to adapt or die in business. And I think that what's funny is, contrary to that statement, if you continue to do what's worked historically, you might be okay. The only way that you could have been okay, though, is if you had set yourself up for the long term. Because, we've both gone through dry spells, different points over the last couple of years that I think it's the same thing everyone experienced, and people weren't able to make it out of the dry spell of people saying that cold calling's not working or direct mail's not working or whatever is not working. It's still working. It just takes a lot of time to make it happen a lot. I mean, some of these we nurture leads for months or years at this point in time to actually close the deal. And for other people, the deals close really, really quickly, but it's just by being consistent with the business model and the way that it works. And for me, like, I was tired of waiting for more money to come in because, acquisitions had slowed a little bit and sales had slowed a little bit. So I became a broker. And, Dan, you talked about brokers or, real estate agents leaving the space. We're doing like 2 deals a week right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's because of a lot of the skills that I've built up over the years within this business that allows me to operate at a like high level as a realtor. But I mean, it's not hard. Like, I won't say it's hard. I think operating the land flipping business is hard. I think being a broker is pretty easy. Like, in general, it's a lot of paperwork and kind of, burdensome with the regulatory stuff. But I think if you do not figure out a way to have consistent money coming in regardless, and you have the, mindset and mental fortitude to be able to continue doing what works over and over and over and over and over again, eventually it is going to catch up. Like that's the definition of success. I think Hormozy talks about it a lot of like doing, the right thing and, not getting any results and just doing it longer than everyone is how it works.
Well, no, I think it's the fundamentals don't change, so we don't sound like we're contradicting ourselves. Fundamentals don't change of direct to seller marketing, continuing over years, good lead follow-up, good due diligence, etc. What has changed, for example, in my business is I've almost entirely gotten out of Florida. We're not doing much marketing there. There's a few areas, and this is one of the points we're trying to make, where they're slow, but I'm going after the really prime lots there to see if I can get some that I couldn't have gotten maybe a year or two ago. But that was my pivot. I didn't pivot from the fundamentals of consistently contacting sellers, putting them through our pipeline, doing our due diligence, following up, etc. I just changed markets or pivoted markets somewhat, where we're focusing more heavily on the Carolinas and Colorado than Florida. So I think these are small changes, but the fundamentals never change.
Oh, for sure. Well, and the beautiful thing about doing this long enough uh, is you start creating like this insane pipeline um, where I'm looking just on our like active deal board, and we've got like 400 on our active deal board right now. And then on our old and dead, I mean, we've got thousands of leads in there. And that right there is an opportunity, as we kind of, start transitioning into some of the tactical aspects of things, of being able to call all your old leads. I mean, there's a good chance that most of these people, assuming that they weren't hostile, they just wanted market price and there was a pricing expectation difference going on. But maybe it's been 3 years since you last reached out to them, because I'll admit it, like I'm not perfect with my follow-up maintenance of, making sure that, especially whenever we, close out a lead of, we're like, all right, we're not going to get this deal. At least once a year, go through your entire CRM. If you use Pebble, which a lot of us in this space use, if you go to properties, you can filter by deal board, which has been really beneficial. So like I can go to old deal board and, filter by cold leads, and I can, export all of them, and it has the phone numbers and emails and everything like that, which has been really beneficial. And then I can just hop on the phone and just dial each one individually, or put it into my dialer and, power dial them. We know it's their phone number. We know it's their email address. You can put them on a follow-up cadence if you want or if you need, but it's just one of those additional tactical things that you can do, because the pricing expectation that this person maybe had in 2021, the last time you actually spoke to them, which is why never delete your leads, like never clear out your inbox.
Yeah.
It's there's a revival opportunity that you actually have, because, you can say, hey, Dan, I spoke to you in November of 2021. It's been a crazy 4 years, hasn't it? How are things going? And then, you feed into the land conversation. I guarantee you there's at least one deal sitting in your inbox right now.
Yeah, one of the deals we did a couple months ago, I think we bought it in June and sold it in July. We'd spoken to the guy 2 or 3 years ago and couldn't agree on price then, but now we could give him his price because that market's gone up a lot. And so we closed it. And that happens all of the time. It's funny you mentioned that, because we didn't even discuss this, but we're doing the same thing where we have a old, verbal agreed on price, but didn't sign the contract stage in our CRM, and then we have just a ghosted long-term follow-up, and we're going to download both of those and call through them respectively. So I'm doing that same thing right now.
Yeah. Well, and something else, I'd consider doing for a lot of people, especially if you have, a little bit of money, and you have some really good ones that you were like, we agreed on price, things were good. This is going to be a great deal. This is going to change my life, which never think like that. It never will happen.
It'll change your life for the worse.
Yeah, you're going to live in a reality of expectation that's never met, and then you're just going to be sad all the time. Which is why Dan and I don't feel anything anymore after hundreds of deals that have gone poorly. But with those really prime ones where you verbally agreed on price, go back, make sure they still own the property. It'll take you 5 minutes to do this. Print out a purchase and sale agreement with the offer that works for you. The pricing could have changed over the past couple of years. Go to the post office and send it, priority mail to make it so where they have to sign for it, or send it to FedEx or something like that. Require a signature for it. That right there is going to create a sense of legitimacy in your business, unlike a lot of other stuff. You can go in and spend $10 on this, and there's a good chance they might sign it. Being creative with your outreach is what's going to get you noticed, because while there has been a thinning of the herd, people are still getting inundated with all sorts of mail. I'm getting more mail now for selling my notes than anything.
That makes sense. Wait, okay, quick aside, that makes total sense, because people see good notes at a low loan to value as really safe. And I think people want more of the safe and reliable income.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that right there of like, I just look at how much mail I get on a daily basis. So you have to stand out, like use creative resources. Dan, like we've talked about this in our shorter YouTube videos, which if you guys, are listening to this on Spotify or watching this on YouTube, like Dan and I have started a series where we're doing these 8 to 15 minute, really, really tactical, information videos to really help you guys with your land business. But Dan's handwriting mailers. I don't know. He has nothing better to do with his time. But no, I mean, seriously. And it's the same thing with me doing these small, $1,500 to $3,000 commission deals of like, most likely you're in a space, where you have the opportunity to spend a lot more time doing stuff. And right now being creative to get in front of people, especially whenever you can, the market has shifted in favor of us. You just have to get them on the phone at this point in time. So do it by whatever means necessary.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because this is a perfect example of this category on our note sheet here is just how to hone your skills from marketing to sales to due diligence, negotiating, etc. And so I am sending a bunch of handwritten mailers, and there's a reason for this. Our normal postcard mailers are continuing as normal, but Mason and I did a deal last month where we bought a lot for $177, sold it for $290 in like 2 weeks. And I looked at that property and pulled similar properties like it. And I was thinking, okay, well, we sent them postcards. We cold called them. But I'm like, if these are 100K opportunities, why the fuck am I not handwriting a letter to every one of these people? And my thought was just test it out. I'm just kind of doing it at night when I have some downtime. But if I can make $100,000 on one of those and kind of get proof of concept that works as well as I think it will, then I can just pay someone going forward to do that consistently to really, really prime lots. And so that's kind of the thought process there, sending out about 1,000 of them in total. And I want to see what the response is. Is it substantially better than, the robot handwritten letters? We'll see. But I'm trying it because if we can get another 100K deal, why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Well, I'm using Ballpoint Marketing, and I'm not an affiliate or anything like that. This is my first time using them, but we've got about 2,000 mailers going out this month, which they're actually shipping them to my house so I can drop them from a Colorado Springs, post office and everything. But it's all handwritten, really simple. And this is for the broker side of things, which we're getting leads on both ends for the broker side of things. But I mean, they look like your grandma it sent you a party invitation is exactly what it looks like. And so we're hopeful that it will get a really high response. We're spending $2,200 or something like that. They're more expensive than postcards. But one deal from this list that I'm mailing, my minimum profit's going to be probably 100 to 200,000 just from one deal. So, and if I put them on a follow-up cadence and start sending them every single different, type of handwritten mailer, we'll see, because we still get decent response rates from these people from just our postcards. But this right here is just a whole different tactic. So I think hitting these people in as many marketing channels as you possibly can is what's going to differentiate you from the competition, because like the blind offer might work. It might, and I know there's a lot of people that make a lot of money on it. I think people send a tremendous amount. So if you're like trying to get started and you're like, I've got a budget to send 100 mailers, don't send blind offers. You are so much better off sending a handwritten Hallmark size envelope for every single one of those than trying to send blind offers on every single one. Because I mean, you're competing against people that are sending 50 to 100,000 of these a month. Yeah. That like, it doesn't matter because they are able to get such high volume from it. So differentiate yourself is kind of the main marketing takeaway that we want you guys to have on this particular area during this market cycle.
Yeah, well, and keep hitting the same areas when they're producing. I've mentioned repeatedly on this show a neighborhood in North Carolina where the prices doubled overnight, essentially more than doubled. And so we've mailed and called and mailed them like 6 times in 3 months. And we got another deal there yesterday. And so it just keeps going because we can sell those immediately. We sold 8 of them. Every one of them went under contract within a few days on market. So Hormozy had a really good podcast about this. It was like 10 minutes. It was brief, and it was all about nobody knows who you are. Keep marketing more when it's working. So that is important. I want to talk about negotiating and sales for a second because I think this has changed. When I was doing this 6 years ago, I remember thinking that there was almost no skill involved because I was sending blind offers at that time because the competition was so low. And it was almost like being my own clerical employee, because this was before I hired anyone, where someone would call, they'd agree to it. Maybe they'd need just a little bit of information to, ease their concerns that it's a scam and send them to the title company or whatever. And that was that. Get a deal, make 10, 20, 30 grand. Well, that's not the case anymore. And you need to have skilled salespeople. I have spent a tremendous amount of time with my guys. They spend time with each other, helping each other, listening to each other's calls, and getting better and better at negotiating, because this has become really important. It's not just, they call and it's an easy close most of the time. Every now and then we still get a lead like that. But so you got to be a good salesperson. So what do you do, Mason? How would you recommend working on this for people out there? They're like, I'm an engineer. How do I learn how to talk to people?
Yeah, I mean, repetition is obviously the only way to do it. There's sales training out there, there's sales books out there, which do them, take them, read them, all that kind of stuff. But I think, stepping backwards a little bit, and I'll get a little more into the tactical of related to the market right now with the increase in AI and the increase in, honestly, scams that are going on out there. You really have to be really good at this, and create authenticity, because, I mean, shoot, it happened to me, what was that, a week and a half ago, where I got an email from someone. The email was like the correct sounding name at outlook.com. They said, hey, I'd really like your help selling my land. I'm looking for a quick sale. Could you provide, a comparative market analysis? We go over and discuss listing prices. I'd love to list my land with you. So I went back and forth with them of like, okay, here's a CMA on your land, for a really quick sale, we can price it at this much. And we keep going back and forth, and it just felt a little weird. It felt too easy to have gotten a $500,000 listing without even trying, like in a really prime market. And so they finally gave me their phone number, which I looked up, and their phone number was not tied to anyone. So I skip traced the actual owner of the property, called them, and I was like, hey, I was just making sure, like, you and I are the one having a conversation right now for me to list and sell your land for you. And she was taken away. She didn't know what I was talking about. I sent her the email chain and everything, and was like, you can report this to the FBI. I would call the title, call your county and let them know, like, hey, make sure that we don't allow any deed transfers to happen or anything like that. Call the local title companies and everything like that too. But with the amount of scams that are going on, and I'm getting what feels like one of these a week now, because my, company name is Colorado Land Acquisition Services, and we have pretty decent SEO, like it's going to show up at the top. And so scammers, where they want to, try and, fool people, they're out there. And so a lot of their targets are going to be older people, which really translates back to, what Dan asked me about, is the sales process of, and we've been talking about it forever. And that's our goal, is like, we really don't want to become creative, too creative in the things that doesn't make sense to be creative in, which is creating a sense and brand that is authentic and genuine and legitimate. That you have the resources at play of just being able to say, call this title company, here's their website and everything like that. And just never forgetting. But beyond all the stuff that we talk about, for the engineer that's looking to, get started in this space and really understand sales, it's just repetitions. And you can go do this. You can go do a Toastmasters. You can just feel very comfortable talking to people, but also look in the mirror and make sure that it's the right thing for you. I don't believe that everyone can just be good at everything. Yeah. But I do think hard work is really important. And if you put the work in, you'll probably become okay at sales. And being okay at sales means you're better than most people.
Yeah. And in our business specifically, legitimacy is just absolutely on the top of the list. We've said this endlessly because it's so true. If you're not maybe the most charming or the best with people, but you can convince these sellers that you are legitimate, will close and won't scam them, you can still close deals. And that's at the top of our list. as to reasons why we get deals. I mean, it's every single day I get a tag in the CRM, all concerned about legitimacy, good lead, concerned about legitimacy. And actually, to Mason's point, if somebody doesn't have any questions for you or concerns, then that's a red flag that they might be a scammer. I mean, we have gotten, don't get me wrong, some people that have called, said, hey, I want X for my land. The number works. It's pretty easy and smooth. But most of the time, that's not the case. So if they're only emailing you, if anything doesn't seem copacetic, you might be wasting your time with a scammer, but your title company should find that along the way too.
Yeah, which a few things, just like Dan said, if they will only communicate with you via email or WhatsApp, if you can never get them on the phone, you know, get them on a FaceTime or a Skype call or something like that, or use an identity verification service, because you can just get yourself wrapped up. But with that being said, it happens so rarely, and Dan and I do a decent amount of volume, which is why it happens to us at all. But it's just, I think it's the funny thing of looking back whenever I first got started in this business of, I would get so many calls back on my mailers, and the people that were calling me back 9 times out of 10, they owned really crappy properties. I mean, it was like no access, or like on the side of a mountain, or it was covered in junk, or the neighbors' yards were covered in junk. Those are the people that are typically going to answer and call and want to get a deal with you. You need to get really good at it, because it's the 1% of the 1% that own prime lots that are willing to part ways at a discount that you need to be able to spend all of your time on. And so, yeah, I think focusing on sales training, reviewing calls, hearing what you sound like, having an online presence, being Googleable, I think is something that, is beneficial. It's a pro and a con sometimes of, on the realtor side of things, I cold outreach for someone that owns about 10,000 acres here in Colorado. And he Googled me and he said, I see, I should be billing you your hourly rate for consulting for wasting my time, and, cussed me out and called me the scum of the earth and everything, which was fine. But, make sure you have a good, solid online presence too. So when people Google your company and something shows up.
Wait, what didn't he like? Was there just something about a profit you made on a land deal, or what made him mad? I'm curious.
He doesn't like developers. We were going to buy his land to, do same project. It's just south of your project, actually, in eastern Colorado. But just said, I'm the scum of the earth. He sent me a poem too about it.
That's hilarious.
And I took it in stride. I was like, look, man, I'm sure I have a lot to learn from you, and, would be happy to come out to your farm and check it out and see what you're trying to protect out here. Like, I have no ill will towards anyone. And now, is it going to turn into a lead? No, it's not. But it's, there's a reputation management side of things that, even with people that are difficult to work with, like, you can't allow your emotions to get in the way, because it's frustrating of like being told you're the worst person on the planet and you're a fraud and everything like that. So, that's what they already think about you. So you're already like kind of almost on the defensive.
Yeah.
But if you come across as defensive, then it just becomes a weird conversation. So being confident in who you are and what your business model is and the actual authority that you have in the space is crucial for you to be able to convey it. Because if you don't believe it, if you don't believe in what you're doing, you're not going to be successful in this space, because why would they believe you?
Yeah.
And so especially if you've been on a losing streak for a really long time, it's going to come up in your conversation. So listen to your calls. I mean, there's tons of AI services too that can analyze your phone calls for you if you want to spend the money for it, or if you don't think you have the time for whatever reason. So tools are out there to get really good at this.
Well, before the quick aside about that guy, you were transitioning nicely towards due diligence. I want to talk about due diligence, because this is something that I don't think is talked about as much as a point of skill. And it definitely is. Once you have a lot of experience, there's just so many things you run into, weird scenarios and weird zoning changes and building moratoriums and all kinds of stuff. And so this is top of mind, because we get so many deals submitted to us to fund, not that many this year, but we still get deals submitted to us. And so consistently, there's massive holes in the due diligence. Like, if you're not having someone look at these properties in person, you are gonna get screwed. I promise you. Even infill lots, like in Florida, I can think of several examples where you got there in person and that lot was just substantially lower than all the others. And it's a quarter acre lot. It didn't show on the topo map. You can't see it from Google Earth, or just something was done to the property recently. Like someone dumped just a huge amount of crap there. And so it's not showing on Google Earth. Now, that's just one example, but really refining your due diligence SOP, always having someone check it in person, and then treating this like a flight checklist is one of the points of skill in the business, I think, because you will lose money if you don't have your due diligence nailed down. And I don't think most people do.
No, they don't. I mean, most people in this space don't even know land very well. I think there's been, as the market shifted in the other direction for a while, a lot of people from the house space moved into land, and they just, by whatever means necessary, they just try and get something under contract. And I think, one, there's just so many basic stuff, like the really basic stuff of like access and utilities that people don't know anything about. People will tell me city water for this land in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, show me the freaking like news update about this multi-$100 billion project to bring water lines, 5 million miles away. So I think understanding the product is crucial. I mean, if you're in this space where you're looking to take action in the land space, or you're kind of hitting a lull, educate yourself on land. Like, first and foremost, Dan and I have free and paid for courses in our school community, but I mean, read books on land development, really, really understand the product. And if you're a wholesaler, like I'll hop on my soapbox for just a little bit on this, because I've got a lot of wholesalers trying to send me deals. One, they're responding to posts I've made where I put the criteria of the post or of the deal in the post, and they're sending me stuff. It's like, hey, 1,000+ acres in Colorado or Wyoming, good road frontage, close to electric. They'll be like, wait, what about 4 acres in Virginia? I'm like, dude, just stop. I will never consider anything you ever say ever again.
Yeah.
And that's not my own self-importance. It's just, I don't work with people like that. And then 2, it's a transparency aspect. Dan and I are investors. Like, we don't care if you make money, if there's money in it for us, based on what our investment thesis is. If you're trying to be wacky about it or not, like, I've got people trying to send me these multi-100 acre deals. I'm like, where are they? And they're like, well, I won't tell you. I'm like, okay, well, guys, come on. And this is the competition for those of you that are legitimate in this space, of these people that are getting in contact with these sellers, and they won't tell their end buyer where the property is. And it's like, well, I can't even analyze it at that point. So you need to be able to analyze it. And you need to be able to be comfortable being transparent enough and working with the right people. Because, to be honest, most people in this space are not out to get you. They're not going to try and go behind your back or steal deals from you. The value of rapport building with sellers is super, super high. And we take that very, very seriously. If you want to work with us, whether it's me or Dan funding a deal or buying a deal from you, or, working with you to broker a deal to one of our clients or something like that, you need to understand the asset class that you're working on and be able to convey that intelligently to someone else. Because if you don't, like, you're not going to make it. Like, sorry, you just won't. You will fail in the space, and you will move on to the next thing that you get, a shiny object syndrome from, the next podcast or the next YouTube video you watch, because you don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah, what always cracks me up is your vacant land, your raw vacant land, or your raw, like, just the words that are constantly used by people in the social media land investing space are not what anyone who's actually in the land space would ever say. The misuse of raw land with a lot that has utilities, or just vacant land. When people are saying, I'm interested in your vacant land, they saw that was what was labeled on PropStream, so they think that's what you call it. Like, it's not. It's your tract. I mean, that's really popular in the Southeast. I told my guys, you need to be using the word tract, because they're focused heavily on the Southeast. And even in Oklahoma, Texas, most of the South, that's what everyone's talking about, or the term everyone uses. I think the best thing to this whole point, to build legitimacy, to be better at negotiating, to just be better at the business, find someone locally, if you can, that's in the land and development space. Join the Home Builders Association. and figure out what people actually building homes and doing real developments are saying, doing, and thinking, and that'll help you a lot with negotiating with sellers too.
Oh yeah, and pay for people's time. Like it's not a big deal to uh, go take someone out to lunch or take someone out to dinner. Especially if there's an opportunity for you guys to work together. It's different of, hey, can you mentor me? I mean, the questions when that question is asked, it's just no. I mean it's a crazy assumption to make. It's honestly rude to value people's time so little. But say that you're getting your feet wet, you're starting to make progress in whatever market that you're operating in. Look up land acquisition in the city that you're doing business in on LinkedIn, and you're going to find a land acquisition rep for a big builder and say, hey, I'm working on deals. I would love to source deals for you. Could I pay for, could I take you out to lunch so we can kind of talk about all of the criteria, or if we can just hop on a call? They're going to give you their criteria. And if you send them deals with that criteria, you're going to start making deals happen with them. And it's really that simple. If you're the wholesaler, and if you're the flipper, it's still good to network with these people and have, these conversations, because that if, DR Horton is paying $30,000 lot, for lots in this particular subdivision, assuming that it has city water, city sewer, and electric at the lot line, there's no floodplain or wetland or something like that. That if you can get that for 15, 16, you've probably got a retail buyer at 30 to 40,000 on it. So it gives you a lot of market insights too, being able to have these conversations. But you can't have these conversations if you don't understand land. In order to understand land, do all the things we told you.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Really, the summary is the market has changed. It's more of a buyer's market, and I think that's a good thing. And there's lots of opportunities, but you have to know your craft, hone in your skills, marketing, negotiating / sales, and due diligence have to be on point, or you will lose, I think. But I'm excited, man. I think there's more of an opportunity now than there has been in a while. So anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I think just think in the long term. Think with the business you're creating, think with the skills that you're working on and working on honing, and with your investment thesis. The longer out you think, the better able you are to operate today. But also don't forget about today, because you need to make money to survive. So we appreciate you guys joining in. Make sure to like and subscribe and share if you find this useful or valuable, whatever platform you're on. And check out our school community, school.com/ground up land community. Dan and I host bi-weekly or twice monthly calls on there where you can interact with us and ask us any questions about your business you might have. So thanks for joining. It's Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkas with the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.